Greetings, Westminster Catawba Christian School families. A couple weeks ago, right before Easter, I sent all of you an email with some updates as to what we are working on as a school as we transition to next year with a focus on culture. One of those announcements included information about our new to us chaplain, Mr. Jake Tassie. Well, thank you for those of you who have said encouraging things to me about him and his family joining us. I was able to speak to him this weekend, and they were able to sell their house in Kansas City in just under 3 days, and we're in Rock Hill this weekend looking for a house for themselves. So please keep praying for them as they head in our direction. Also want to give you an update as to some things that we've already done. A couple weeks ago, right before Easter, on that last day before the break, on Monday, Thursday, the school set aside the day along with other ACSI schools to pray. Our lower school students took time in their classrooms and they prayed for our school, for each other, for our communities. Our upper school had a special Easter chapel on that day where we set aside some time at the end to pray, also for our school, for each other. It was an encouraging time, and I hope that we will continue to be in prayer. Just this last week, our lower school students enjoyed a time where they celebrated or they worked on a Grow a Friend Day. Different classes did it on different days, but what happened was that teachers took time and taught many lessons on how to build relationships, how to build friendships, connecting the process to grow with the growth that we see all around us in springtime. Students had opportunity to tell other classmates what they most appreciate about them, and they wrote notes to each other. They exchanged those notes, and if things go according to plans, these notes should be coming home in the Monday folders for most students even this afternoon. I can't wait to see what God does through this intentional time of training our little ones to grow in their relationships. However, it's not just the little ones who need help with that. Our upper school students need reminders. They need training. They need accountability there as well. And so with that in mind, this week, our upper school will focus on the concept of loving your neighbor. Allow me to elaborate on some plans that we have, but start with some background. Upper school is a tough time. It's a difficult time for students, even students who live in Christian homes, who attend Christian schools. The world is literally pressing in on every side. Our kids are told, and they begin to believe it, that they are the center of our universe. The pursuit of happiness is often lauded over the pursuit of holiness. The use and sometimes abuse of substances can be encouraged. Technological advancements that claim to enhance social lives, especially social media opportunities, do little more than isolate our kids. Relationships are challenging at best and can be damaging at worst. But before we become overly critical of kids today, it'd be wise for us as adults to look in the mirror. There are many adults who struggle with seeing themselves as the center of the universe, or pursue happiness over holiness, or misuse substances, or are addicted to social media. But there is hope. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead on that very first Sunday lives inside those who claim Christ as our Lord and Savior. The scriptures are true when they say that we will have trouble in this world. Scriptures are also true when Jesus says in John 16 that Jesus has overcome the world. We need Jesus and we need each other. If there's ever been a time in our history where believers needed to lock arms against the world rather than locking horns against each other, it's now. This Friday, April 20th, I'm going to have the opportunity to speak to our students, our upper school students, and challenge them with this very message during our special chapel time together. Parents, we're going to ask you to join us as well if you are able to come on that Friday morning to our chapel time. Those who can't attend, we're even going to post it on Facebook Live so that all can participate. As our upper school families know, Friday is a normal time for us to have chapel. However, this Friday is going to be a little bit different. It's a momentous day as it's the 19th anniversary of that awful Columbine school shooting. It will be a day that will again bring politics to the forefront. There will be groups that will gather to pray and other groups that will gather to rally and protest. Blame will be cast in every direction, from guns to violent video games to mean kids to poor parenting. Very few will note that the root cause of sin, the sin that resides in each of us, that's what continues to affect all areas of our world. Along with the blame will be recommended solutions that will be even farther reaching, doing away with guns and video games completely, increasing school security to the point where it becomes such a focus that kids don't feel safe, even improving character education, ironically, to make up for what kids aren't getting at home. But again, far too few will claim the gospel as the solution. On this particular Friday, we're going to rehearse the big picture of the Bible, that story of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. We're going to be reminded that God created the world without sin, and it was very good. We're going to talk about the effects of the fall that are recorded in Genesis 3. But we're also going to look at that promise of redemption that comes even before the 3rd chapter of Genesis closes out. That culminates in the life, the death, the resurrection that we just celebrated a couple weeks ago. But we're going to spend the bulk of our time in chapel this Friday talking about restoration, that last part of that process. The gospel doesn't end when we ask Jesus into our hearts and heaven is assured. That's actually just the beginning. Our kids have heard the gospel. They all have, although not yet all believe. If pressed, I believe many would say that the gospel is simply about getting into heaven. And it doesn't apply much to life between now and death. It simply could not be farther from the truth. There's a reason why we are not taken up into heaven as soon as we become believers. We are called to love God, the greatest commandment, and to love our neighbors, the second greatest. That's where restoration, especially in relationships, comes in. I will stop there in hopes that you will want to attend our chapel and hear the rest of what I have to say to our kids. Allow me to end with a quick policy note. I mentioned this Friday is the anniversary of the Columbine shooting. It's also a day that many organizations have set aside to encourage students to walk out of school at 10 a.m. and to stay out for the rest of the day, presumably to protest school violence. While I believe that all would advocate for school safety, most WCCS parents and families would likely not support the political groups that are behind the calls for this walkout. I also don't believe most families want their children missing out on valuable class time. Given that, we're going to treat this Friday, April 20th, as a regular school day. Students will be expected to be in class all day long and will not be permitted to leave unless they have a note from a parent requesting an absence. That's regular school policy. And it will be true for this Friday as well. It's our sincere hope, it's my hope, that our focus for the week will grow our relationships with God and with each other, will enable us to educate our students to bless our world as disciples of Christ. Allow me to close with a quick challenge to parents in particular. For those who want to model loving your neighbor in a very tangible way, please email me directly, sdillon@wccs.org, as there is a school family in need that I hope some parents will come alongside and love well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support of our school, for trusting us with your students, and for your prayers as we focus on culture, and particularly this week, focusing on loving your neighbor. Have a great week.